Let's talk about web frameworks. So, where do web frameworks fit in? And when are we going to need them? So first, what is a web framework? First, we need to know a little bit about HTTP requests to know kind of why we need one. Without requests, they're a solution to a problem that we don't have. So let's look at what a request looks like. And this, gets back to a little bit where we talked about how D3 and data transfers across the web. The way they work is an HTTP request is what your browser will make to a server. So your browser will send a command. Here an example is a get command. It gives a protocol and some parameters. So these are the request headers. So in accepted coding, gzip. So what that means is that your browser can unzip gzipped files. So rather than send back a plain text file, if the server has a gzipped version, it'll send that and reduce bandwidth. And it might be faster to send a gzip and unzip it on the client than send the whole file. So some of these exist, and it also passes some information about your system itself so that the site can make some decisions. So if you're on a mobile device, for example. And what comes back? So that goes out to the server. Server will respond with a response. And the response contains some headers as well, and then a body. So the headers say what kind of document it is. So it can respond with HTML document, text HTML, and it's going to expect that that's HTML formatted text document, right? There are other types of headers. So for example, you can also respond with JSON, and if you give the content type application JSON, this is what a lot of APIs look like. So APIs are, often just web servers that parse the input that they get, the requests that they get, and return a JSON encoded output. So APIs are really just kind of one, fit into what a server web framework is. So we can think about the frameworks in two different ways. So those are both server side and client side. So a server-side web framework does what we've been talking about. It takes HTTP requests and it connects to server-side resources. If we're running a Python server, for example, it'll get the request header, the request itself, and you'll be able to run some code. So you can say if you requested a certain URL, go execute this Python function, send an email. You can access your local database. So it lives between all those functionalities that you want and the requests that come in. And then ultimately you'll return a response. Client side, there are also whole frameworks that exist that live in the browser. So what do I mean by client side here? These are all inside of JavaScript. So it would be a framework that handles how the browser requests data and how it stores and manages its own application state. So something like that can control when you click a submit form, does it actually submit? The web framework that you're running on can go ahead and make the page responsive to different actions without talking to a backend server. So client-side ones are useful as well. So how do we decide which kind we need? Well, they help if you need a lot of different pages with the same content. So this is a place where if you're making a simple site, so you're making just a resume site, and you want to have the same header across many pages, then you decide you want to change it. I'm sure we've all been in that situation. Then you have to go and change it on every page, and it's a real pain. So having a templating language is really helpful. And this can happen dynamically with a web framework. You can have the web framework read in pages that are requested from templates. There are kind of other ways this works too. You can, pre-generate templated content. And also if you need to move data. So the web framework can help in that way that if you send some data to the server, then it can store that in a database. And, when you return to that site, it can have the things that you save for it. Client-side application frameworks allow a lot of responsiveness, and they also help manage things like, notification buttons and stuff like this. If so that there's not state floating around in multiple places. And they can also respond really quickly because they are just running right in the browser. For server side, right, if you need to connect to a database, you need resources that are in public, you need to move data, and you need to authenticate and authorize, right? Things like if you want to allow someone to log in with Twitter, with their Twitter handle, right? You would need to go ahead and pass off to Twitter with their OAuth key, with your OAuth key, and then return the response, and all that has to happen through a web framework. So because your browser is moving between pages, so you need a server-side framework to manage that. Frameworks also allow for a way to think about how to do a web application. There are a lot of different ways. MVC is one such way to think about web apps, where you have models, views, and controllers. Controllers basically handle URLs. Views handle the construction of pages, and models wrap around the database. So you can kind of abstract kind of the three main things that a web framework does. So there's MVC frameworks. There's also other framework topologies that try to do this in a little bit a different fashion. But basically what you can do is kind of make a site do all these things in a pretty clean way. What are some of these frameworks like? Well, some of them are in Python. You have both Django and Flask are very popular. You've probably worked with. Ruby has Rails, which is also probably one of the most popular web frameworks. And of course, there's frameworks that exist in PHP. WordPress is a PHP web framework as well. On the client side, there are a number of different JavaScript libraries which accomplish this. Backbone, Ember, Angular, React. React is becoming more popular now. Angular, I think, is now in version 2. It's it's built out by Google. React was built by Facebook, and these all manage application state for your pages. But you can get pretty far without a framework. You might not need any of these. So if you're just building a simple app, if you want to build a site without a server side or even a client side framework to manage state, you can do that. A lot of apps are built without a server-side framework. Single-page web apps, you don't really need a framework. Of course, Angular is a framework for single-page web apps. And you can use Ajax to pull in data and kind of write these things yourself. So there's a lot of different ways to go. And I guess the other way to go without using a framework is to use static pages. So when you host content on GitHub, for example, on GitHub Pages, they have a web server, but all it's doing is serving the files that you've already generated. So if you use something that, like Jekyll to generate static content for a blog, right? That's serving static files by a web framework. So a lot of different ways to get around here. And depending upon whether you need to serve up data or not from a database or just access static files. If your data is in a bunch of files, you might not need a framework to kind of handle database access and turning that into a JSON response. You might just want to go grab those files with JavaScript directly, in which case you don't need a framework. So a lot of different ways to go depending upon what you're trying to do.